Hello, I'm Dr. Macclevoid, not my real name, and this is the review of Killers of the Flower Moon that you didn't ask for, but I'm going to give you anyway because that's the kind of guy I am. Look, the first and most important thing to say about this movie, to put it in its proper context, is to say that Martin Scorsese doesn't like modern movies. Okay? Your Marvels, your DCs, to him, cinema is beautiful solitude, it's immersion, it's old fashioned attentiveness. And no disrespect to modern audiences, but your ADHD afflicted, communally illiterate, self absorbed approach to spectatorship is about as far away from the auteur's ideal of what the cinematic experience should be as it's possible to get. All right. I mean, when he made Taxi Driver all those years ago, he didn't imagine that one day it would be competing with your social media feed and a hand job for attention. Although, I can understand why the latter might still hold some interest. But to prove his point, he's made a sort of old school thinker. All right, a film that's paced decadently, very decadently, to encourage rumination and self doubt. It's a very long movie. You'll have heard that. 3.5 hours long. In fact, I think it might still be going on. I'm not sure. I might have to sneak back in after this and check. Um, but it is long, and it's paced, I think, deliberately that way in order to get you to ponder what you're watching as you're watching it. That it's made by Apple, which is a streaming service, of course, as well as everything else, is both a sign of the times and it's also Marty's Faustian pact with the predacious capitalists vying to destroy the cinematic experience as we know it. He's embraced his frenemy. He's embraced his frenemy. The only studio would give him the cash because he intuited it was a neat allegory, perhaps, for the film's central theme, which is the traditionalists being taken over by unsentimental predators. So, what is it about? Well, it's another movie about the foundation of modern America. You've seen a lot of these. There Will Be Blood, Dances with Wolves. You know the score. White colonial America, rapacious, hucksterish, edging out the provincial and spiritual. The people that born of the land, the people we're instinctively supposed to see as good and uncomplicated. So we've seen the story before in many forms, but Scorsese has found a couple of novel approaches, and they make it a more nuanced and rewarding watch than some of its more sort of thunderingly literal forebears. In the first instance, the American Indians that we're introduced to, that first lament the coming of the white man and the sort of existential threat to their culture and identity, have within a generation made their peace with it. They have the oil money, they have the rights to the land, they're marrying the men who turned up to drill and build with the proceeds. They believe the lie that guilt around sort of 19th century genocide means they can trust pillars of the community like Robert De Niro, a rancher, and therefore by implication an aged cowboy, when he says he respects their right to their oil-rich land, and he claims to be a paragon of an enlightened multicultural society where white man and Indian live alongside in shared prosperity. But Kel Surprise, he's just gone underground. He's a Freemason, prosecuting a race war by stealth. Ain't it always the way? Don't want to cast any dispersions on Freemasons if you're a Freemason, but I've never met a Freemason who wasn't a genocidal racist. Anyway, De Niro wants the oil rights to the land, and he sees a way to acquire it when his nephew, Leonardo DiCaprio, playing a chap called Ernest, advertises a bent for women and cash. That's my boy, thinks De Niro, and he therefore puts him in the direction of Molly, who is a Native American heiress to some very lucrative dirt. And DiCaprio's character doesn't need much persuading to court and marry this um, wealthy but also shrewd and savvy and very attractive local woman. Now, you might say, well, if she's shrewd and all the rest of it, why wouldn't she see it coming? And that's the movie's second point of novelty. She does, but she risks it anyway. Um, the film's the perfect story to show somebody if you wanted to illustrate the concept of cognitive dissonance. Molly suspects she's being played, but she loves Ernest, so she dares to believe that he reciprocates and that he's administering insulin for her diabetes and not something more toxic. She dares to believe her mounting dead relatives are nothing to do with the family she's married into. And in turn, Ernest, who's nakedly criminal in all other aspects, may have a blind spot when it comes to his wife. He's a conscious conspirator when it comes to offing his wife's relatives. He's got seemingly no moral qualms about doing that, though, he's never explicitly happy or sad about it. But it's different when it comes to Molly herself. It would be easy for us to think that he would just cynically poisoned her. That's the judgment of history, if you like. That's the tabloid conclusion. But DiCaprio deserves an enormous amount of credit because he portrays a man who may have internalized some of the lies that he's feeding everyone else. There's a Hitchcockian shadow of a doubt there. The talk is explicit when it comes to everyone else. But when it comes to his immediate family, the language is coded, vague, or it's unsaid. And we come to believe that there may be a part of him that actually believes that his wife may be terminally ill because of this, as they call it, a wasting disease, which is a euphemism for diabetes that's killed one of her sisters already. And he may actually believe that he's administering a novel medicine. And when they say, well, would you add in this, unidentified additional substance which will slow her down, calm her down, well, she is quite anxious and grief-stricken throughout the film, as anyone would be whose relatives were being continually murdered. So perhaps he thinks, yeah, okay, that's what that's doing. We don't know. And it's a tribute to DiCaprio's performance, which is excellent, that it could be read either way. You just can't be sure. And if you assume that DiCaprio's character is, suffering from a form of cognitive dissonance, then what does he represent? What function does he hold in the story? Arguably, white America's unwitting complicity and denial over its own racist history, and the spoils that it continues to enjoy. So this is a conscious throwback, if you like, to a kind of adult American cinema that's become a novelty item, not to be confused with the other type of adult cinema, which of course is hardcore pornography. It's the kind of movie you see in independent cinemas where the staff wear Keep Cinema special t-shirts, which is their way of saying, if you don't respect the culture and etiquette of old, for fuck's sake, stay at home, would you? Just don't come. But Marty knows that movies like these will soon be like, Native American traditions, quaint, signifiers of a life before the records came along. The movies have been infantilized, Films aimed at our inner child and actual flesh and blood children broke the confidence of filmmakers to tell adult stories and be artistically innovative. And those broken audiences then broke the next generation of filmmakers who tried to replicate their childhood experiences with rapidly diminishing returns. So that's the reason you should go and see Killers of the Flower Moon. But ironically, it's also the reason you won't.